As of the 8 o'clock hour, we're still looking at a tropical storm as Ian has downgraded to winds down to about 65 miles per hour. The storm itself is just to the south and east of Orlando, headed toward Cocoa Beach, if you will. Will continue to slide further off to the north and east and make its way back out to sea, where it could strengthen, of course, over the warmer waters. Anytime a hurricane or tropical storm makes landfall, it will start to lose a lot of its characteristics. Those winds start to die out a little bit. And so this particular storm, as a Category 4, made landfall yesterday around 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, just north of Fort Myers, and that's the amount of land mass it had to go through to get to the other side. And you can see the wear and tear on it, if you will, as the storm has begun to reduce as far as its wind speeds go greatly from a Category 4 down to a tropical storm. And so good news, somewhat still battering central Florida, of course, with all the heavy rain. It's north of the storm where you find that, Daytona Beach, all the way up to Jacksonville, that very heavy rain that's taking place. See the state outlined in blue? Those are tropical storm warnings that remain in effect. Again, as of the 8 a.m. advisory, this is fresh for us, folks. As of a minute ago, winds still at 65 miles per hour, gust as high as 75 miles per hour. Those winds would have to get up to about 75 miles per hour to become a hurricane. Could get up there as the storm moves back out to sea and then begins to make its way further off to the north. Northeast wind movement now moving to the northeast at about 8 miles per hour, so a little bit slower now that the storm has begun to move through land. Now here's the latest track from the Hurricane Center. And I want you to notice that there's not much change from our last update, which was at 5 a.m. in the track, and it keeps it well east of our state. Now, the coast will be the most affected because as the storm begins to bend to the north, you get that onshore flow coming in, and so our coastline will get doused with some very heavy rain. Certainly some flooding will be taking place there. That blue line that you see, we showed you over Florida, extends all the way up into North Carolina. That is a tropical storm warning that remains in effect. No longer the hurricane warnings out there because we are looking at a tropical storm. You also look at this particular track, and it does show that it will remain at least a tropical storm all the way up at least until it hits landfall again. It was expected to make landfall once again as we head into tomorrow afternoon into South Carolina. Yesterday this time we were telling you that the landfall would take place closer to the border between Georgia and South Carolina. That put the storm closer to us, which meant our impacts would be a little bit more greater. But now that it's more over toward the east, we have lower impacts as we head through the weekend. Some good news for Georgia, as a matter of fact, but not our coastline. Okay, not our coastline. Not going to see that good news there. Lots of flooding will take place there. But remains a tropical storm even as it heads into South Carolina, expecting that landfall to take place by Friday afternoon. Then it continues to slide further off to the north, and wraparound flow will bring us some showers, but we're not expecting or anticipating much in the way of rainfall. Even our winds, today they will pick up to about 15 to 20 miles per hour. Gusts could be a little bit higher than that. I think tomorrow will be the same, and then by Saturday, that starts to diminish as the storm starts to move a little bit more to the north of us. Take a look at the model data, and we're pretty confident about where the storm is going because the models are really starting to come together. Even as of yesterday, we saw those models spreading out just a little bit toward the end of the run there. Not seeing that this time around. The models are mimicking what the Hurricane Center has in place. And so if you look at this, most of the models bring that storm out to sea and then up right into the Charleston area as a tropical storm moves up toward North Carolina. Then you get the wig-wag that takes place all over the place. You only have two outliers showing the storm moving further off to the north, even west of Atlanta. That is not even where the storm is, so we know that's off. And then this one heading straight out to sea. Now that would be the best for all of us up and down the eastern seaboard, but I don't think that will happen. I think the general consensus is that the storm would move out to sea, moving almost away from our coastline and then hooking back into South Carolina near the Charleston area, maybe even north of the Charleston area. Again, that won't take place until tomorrow afternoon. So general agreement on where the storm is going, and I think I'm pretty confident that that will be the case. And so again, confident in saying our impacts will be minimal. If you take a look at this graphic here, it does show the wind speeds. So when you see that blue, that's over Metro Atlanta, for example, you're talking about wind speeds around 15 miles per hour. Once you start to get into some of that yellow, once you make your way down toward the coast there, you're talking about wind speeds over 20 miles per hour, pushing the 30 mile per hour wind speed speeds. And so we'll see that mainly along the coast as we go through today and into tomorrow. Now, this is by this afternoon or this evening. Notice the winds over the metro area start to die off just a little bit. I think we will have some winds at times up to about 15 to 20 miles per hour. Gusts could be a little bit higher than that. You see the center of circulation by tomorrow afternoon about to make landfall just south of the Charleston area. Look at those winds. Now, the strongest part of the storm, come on back out here. I want to show you this. Now, the strongest part of the storm typically is going to be on the right side. You notice that's where we have the strongest onshore flow. And so the brunt of the winds, the brunt of the storm surge will be to the right and north of the storm. So heading, as it's moving to the north, the greatest impact will be felt right here into South Carolina. Notice all that red in there, some magenta color in there, a little purple in there as well. You're talking about winds here up to about 50 miles per hour. Okay, certainly around the center of circulation. Most of that will stay offshore, but even into Georgia, you're looking at winds up to about 40 miles per hour, but that'll be mainly along the coast where we see that. That yellow extends into central Georgia. So down toward the Macon area, those winds will be picking up. And again, this is by Friday afternoon. So you're talking about winds down in the Macon area and southward up to about 30 miles per hour. And we're talking about sustained winds here, not even the gust. For Atlanta Metro, you're looking at winds up to about 20 miles per hour or less. Gusts could be a little bit higher than that. And in far northwest Georgia, not looking at much at all. And so because of the more easterly track, again, our impacts will be on the minimal side as far as the winds go and as far as the rain goes as well. Continues to diminish as the storm continues to push further off to the north. This is by Saturday morning, and you can see only a few breezes around. I think it will continue to be breezy, those winds coming out of the north, but the bulk of that the wind will be further off to the north along the coastline there. And so our weekend is almost spared a little bit with that storm passing through. As far as the rainfall goes, look at this. Not much here at all. And this is an update. This is the US model, or the GFS, what we call the GFS, and you can see the brunt of the rainfall. This is through Friday morning over here into South Carolina, where we'll see not much at all. Our easternmost counties, maybe up to a half an inch, maybe an inch of rainfall possible there. Certainly along the coastline is where we're going to experience the very, very heavy rain that will be taking place. Here's another model. This is the Euro model, which brings it a little bit further to the west. But even if you look at the Atlanta metro area, you're still looking at less than a half an inch for our westernmost counties, maybe up to an inch for our easternmost counties. The Cobb County eastward, you may be seeing up to an inch of rainfall. But you're talking about light amounts of rain, something that we can certainly handle or sustain. That heavy rain is over here toward the east, much of South Carolina, Columbia down through Charleston, even further down to the south, Hilton Head. That's where you're going to see the bulk of that rainfall, 4+ inches, even higher than that in some localized spots. So that's going to be the case as we head through the day. How about that rain? What's the timing of it? When will it fall? Where will it fall? Let's take a look at it here on our forecast track model. And you'll notice starting off today, or at least this morning, we're nice and dry. We got the sunshine out there looking pretty good. That rain now, heavy rain stretching into Jacksonville, excuse me, Florida, down to the south, where that center of circulation is. Now, as that starts to move to the north, here we are by Friday morning. And again, I think this is where we'll see the brunt of the onshore flow coming into the system, coming into our state as the system continues to push to the north. By this time, almost adjacent to maybe Jacksonville, maybe just to the north of Jacksonville. Look at that heavy rain just offshore, but then even that moderate rain that's coming down into our eastern or southeasternmost counties there. That's when we'll experience most of the heavy rain and the winds Friday morning to our far east. As it pushes further to the north and moves inland over toward the Charlotte area into South Carolina, notice how the rain spreads a little bit further back over toward the west. So you're talking about Friday night or Friday evening. That's when we can see some of the rain. Right now, given a 30% chance, we'll be monitoring that as the storm continues to push to the north to see how far to the west the storm will go, or at least the rain will move toward our area. But the metro could be seeing some light showers around. Going to give it a 30% chance Friday evening. Notice by Saturday, with the storm moving further off to the north and west, we'll keep that rain in the forecast. So in the morning on Saturday, I think we'll have wet weather around. The rain should be on the light side. Now, looking at very heavy rain. The winds will blow it around just a little bit. Again, our winds will be breezy, not very windy, but breezy conditions out there. By the time we get to the afternoon on Saturday, look at this. Dissipating. we're going to keep the clouds in place, but the rain from the storm will have pushed a little bit further off to the north. Now on the models, at least on those spaghetti plots, I was showing you how the area of low pressure may meander around the Carolinas a little bit between North and South Carolina. That means that as it moves a little bit further down to the south, we could see some showers even as we head into Sunday. But again, you're talking about minimal amounts, mainly up there in the North Georgia mountains at best. And so skies will begin to clear out somewhat even as we head into Sunday. And I know Sunday, a lot of you have plans to go out to Mercedes-Benz Stadium because the Falcons are back in town. They have a 1 o'clock game. So most of those tailgates, most of the folks will get out there by 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, start to set things up. And I think it'll be dry for the most part. We're going to hold on to about a 20% chance for an isolated shower in the forecast. Partly sunny skies will be the call on Sunday. Notice again over towards Charlotte, down through Columbia, we still have some lingering showers. Again, that's where that area of low pressure kind of meanders around a little bit. Not as far west that I think it brings the rain to our area, but we'll hold on to that very slight chance for an isolated shower or two. But for the most part, it's going to be drier for us. And again, the scenario has been a drier scenario because of the storm's latest movement over toward the east. I want to show you this one more time. Here is the latest information from the Hurricane Center. Tropical Storm Ian now was a Category 4 monster hurricane, moved across the peninsula of Florida, making landfall over toward or just north of Fort Myers, and moved diagonally northeast to where it is now, just to the south of Cocoa Beach, Melbourne, and set to move off the coast, where it will move back out to sea, where I think the storm will have the potential for strengthening. Now, again, by the wee hours of the morning tomorrow, Friday, you're looking at that storm almost adjacent to the Jacksonville area. I think it's when it gets up to that point is where we'll have the strongest winds and the heaviest rain that pushes into our area as far as our coastline there, where you see that dark blue there. That's where we have tropical storm warnings that remain in effect. All right. And so I think this is when we'll start to see the brunt of the storm for our coastline. Now that storm will rapidly begin to move to the north and expect to make landfall somewhere around the Charleston area. That'll be Friday afternoon. And notice how the forecast has the winds picking up to about 70 miles per hour. So that's just 4 or 5 miles below a Category 1 or very minimal hurricane. So those winds will still be strong. It still will be a powerful tropical storm as it makes landfall tomorrow, just around the Charleston area into South Carolina. But even the cone of uncertainty, if you recall, if you've been tracking with us, the cone of uncertainty has been over all of Georgia for much of this forecast. And now that the storm is getting a little closer, we are fine tuning that, and you can see how small that cone of uncertainty is. And so we're in pretty good agreement, even with the models, that it will stay on this particular path through Friday, and then Saturday move inland and rapidly begin to dissipate because of its losing of the warm waters that are feeding the storm. So anytime a tropical storm or a hurricane makes landfall, it starts to lose its characteristics. Number one, the winds start to die out, and the rain, it just rains itself out, really. So it dumps a lot of heavy rain, especially over toward the coastline where it moves in. Now, another thing, very interesting thing here with this is that as the storm makes its way up to the north and we get that onshore flow coming in, there could spawn tornadoes, but that'll be mainly along the Georgia coastline and into South Carolina, especially into South Carolina and north of the Charleston area. So north of Charleston going into Wrights Beach in North Carolina, those areas with that onshore flow, because of the friction that takes place, little brief spin up tornadoes are certainly possible along the coastline there. But the storm continues to head up to the north, where it will continue to dissipate, and we'll be looking at better days ahead. There is another system that's back out over the sea, but that is expected to remain out to sea, so we're not too much worried about that. Keep in mind that the hurricane season lasts until the end of November. All the way through November is a hurricane season, all right, typically, and it's not uncommon that we would get a hurricane or a tropical storm that forms outside of the season. So in December and January, certainly those things are possible, but I think we'll still continue to see storms popping up at least through October. So that's something we'll watch out for as we go along. But this is the latest track from the Hurricane Center as of the 8 a.m. update. Winds 65 miles per hour, making Ian a tropical storm instead of a hurricane. Very powerful hurricane at one point, probably the most powerful hurricane to make landfall in the United States, let alone in the state of Florida as well. Again, the storm will continue to push up to the north, move into South Carolina, far enough east of us that the impacts will be very minimal around here. Some light rain and some breezy conditions starting this afternoon, and that will linger right on through the rest of the weekend. Keep it locked right here for the very latest on Tropical Storm now Ian. As the storm continues to push north, we'll continue to update you on the impacts it will have around here for us, especially as we head into the weekend. Stay safe out there, folks, and keep it locked right here for the latest.